Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Pilot Principle. This is the podcast where we take a look at just the first episode of a series, the pilot, and then use it to decide if we should watch the entire series, or at least the second episode. Apologies in advance because for somebody who barely leaves the house, I once again am coming down with something, so hopefully my voice doesn't sound too irritating to you on this episode of the podcast. Speaking of this episode, today we are taking a very random look at the pilot episode of Alibi's new police drama series, The Red King. It was Red Eye last week, The Red King this week, red, it's all coming up purple. Here is what the series synopsis is for The Red King, according to Alibi. Anjali Mohindra stars in this mystery thriller combining a powerful story of a police investigation with a chilling horror story of an island's eerie past. Ooh, now before we get into talking about the pilot episode itself, you know the drill. We are going to look at some of the behind the scenes stuff, starting with the pilot title, or I should say lack thereof, a pilot title. So we're 2 for 2 right now with lack of pilot titles. We have a pilot synopsis that says, Police Sergeant Grace Narayan is sent on a punishment posting to the small antiquated island of St. Jory, where she discovers the forgotten cold case of a missing teenage boy. Episode length is about 51 minutes and we have a series length of 6 episodes. Now the pilot, the untitled pilot I should say, was written by the series creator Toby Whithouse, who has written and created the series Eyes, Being Human and The Game. Whithouse has also written episodes of No Angels, Torchwood, Doctor Who and Noughts and Crosses. The untitled pilot was directed by Daniel O'Hara, who has directed episodes of Skins, Being Human, The Game, and Doctor Who, where 2 of the episodes that he directed was also written by Whithouse. Coincidence? You know, probably not, to be honest. He has also directed episodes of Brassic and has done a couple of the Harlan Coben stuff. So we're talking Safe, The Stranger, and Stay Close, all on Netflix. I'd say, by the sounds of these 2 and what they've got in their repertoire, they're quite a formidable duo, so I'm feeling good about The Red King having looked at their filmographies. Now, The Red King stars Anjali Mohindra as Grace Narayan, and Mohindra has starred in The Sarah Jane Adventures, The Missing, Bancroft, Bodyguard, Vigil, The Suspect, and The Lazarus Project, which is the most recent thing that she's been in that I know her from. The pilot also stars James Bamford as Owen Parry, and Bamford has starred in Show Trial and Luther the Fallen Son. Quick side note to say that Show Trial Season 2 is coming very, very soon. Now, the pilot also stars Lou Caulfield, who had a long-running role in Doctors and was also in Show Trial. It stars Adjoa Ando, who is currently playing Lady Danbury in the Netflix Bridgerton series, and Mark Warren, who I always link back to Hustle, even though the reference is more than 10 years old, and he's done so many more things since then. As mentioned, you can watch The Red King on Alibi, and I don't know if you can get this channel anywhere else. It's just part of my Sky package, and all 6 episodes are just available on demand. They did mention UK TV Play, if that helps anyone. Okay, let's move on to what made me want to watch the series. And do you know what? I actually had no idea what I was going to watch for this week's podcast episode. I hadn't seen anything that sort of piqued my interest or anything new at all, to be perfectly honest with you, on the services that I have. And then I just happened to randomly see The Red King come up on the Sky TV homepage, and I instantly recognised Anjali Mohindra from The Lazarus Project, which has sadly recently been cancelled after 2 seasons and a doozy of a season finale. So when I saw her, I was like, oh, what's this? And as well as that, the sort of little header poster thing on Sky just looked incredibly freaky but intriguing. And I also recognised Adjoa Ando and Mark Warren, and I'll post the image, on my Instagram or Twitter, so you don't have to sit through my painful audio description. But my point is, it looked cool and weird, and I realised that this series had only been released a few days ago, and I was like, sold. Okay, backstory out of the way, let's get into the first 10 minutes of the pilot episode. Why the first 10 minutes, you ask? Well, the first 10 minutes of a pilot is technically built to propel you as a watcher or you as a script reader into the story. So if the opening has done its job, you should be chomping at the bit to find out all answers to the questions that have been teased. If it's done poorly, then, well, what does it matter anyway? Because you've already changed the channel. So, with that being said, the first 10 minutes of The Red King goes like this, and it's quite a long one because a lot goes down. So, stick with me through this. We actually first start, though, with the opening sequence, which hasn't been done in a while. The opening sequence is quite cool, shows people in different styles of full masks in a village setting, and I think sets the tone really, really well. Then, after the intro, we meet Grace, who is clearing out her locker, which has been stuffed with grass and posters calling her a rat. None of her colleagues look her in the eye as she leaves the office, and Grace is then forced to duck into an empty room to avoid, presumably, the colleagues that got her into whatever mess this mess is. She walks out to the balcony for some air and comes across a tear-faced uniformed officer who says a bunch of cryptic things, including the words, "They just asked for a name," and also, "It's too late for you," before he jumps. When we next see Grace, she is in her new home on St. Jory, in an B&B filled with symbolic/creepy staring artifacts. She watches as tourists are all gathered up and shepherded by townspeople towards the ferry. The locals are all in masks and they're playing instruments and smiling, and it's kind of like a weird festival parade thing to get the tourists off the island. It is Grace's first day at work at the local station that hasn't seen any technological advancements since the 50s, and she is stunned to find the staff includes herself and a Terry Pratchett reading guy called Owen. We go back to town and the ferry has left the dock. The townspeople wave and cheer the tourists off, and then when the boat is barely out of sight, they stop. Still silent, masks still firmly in place. And on that creepy note, we are bang on 10 minutes. Now, as an intro, there is a lot happening, but in a good way. I think there are about 5 different things happening, and half of them are creepy. We've got the unknown reason that Grace is leaving her previous precinct and has now had to come to St. Jory to work instead. We've got this guy jumping off a building with cryptic messages. We've got all these masks. And I was honestly like, what the actual F cake have I switched on? But also, I'm going to keep going and find out. So as an opening, it did its job splendidly. Now, in terms of characters, we have Grace Narayan, who is a sergeant and who, based on what we glean from the opening and see throughout, she has a good moral compass and sort of zero tolerance for bullshit. She's also not afraid to do the hard stuff, which we can guess from the fact that she was called a grass and a rat by her colleagues at her former place of work. We don't know what this hard thing is that she had to do, but she did it, and she also made the very difficult decision to move to a creepy island. Another reason that we know that Grace has a good moral compass and isn't afraid to, put in the work is that when she meets a doctor whose son has been missing for a year, she decides to go through the old case notes and find out what happened, despite the fact that doing this pisses off the entire town for reasons unknown. Another thing to say about Grace is that she is incredibly independent. I mean, she must be. She literally just moved once again to this weird island with no friends or family. She just picked herself up and done did it. So definitely independent. And she isn't concerned about following the sort of beaten track because everybody in town is telling her to stop looking into this case. And she's just like, you guys are literally wild. You think I'm not going to do my job? And then she goes and does her job. Love that for her. In general, I really like her. I mean, or I like Angeli. I mean, it's kind of hard to split the two, which is a wider commentary on acting, but not one I am here to make. We don't know anything about her personal life, what she's left behind in, I believe, Newcastle. We don't know about her friends, her family, etc. And you know what? There's something I like about that. The fact that we got a 2-minute work-related backstory, and then that was it. How we see her is how we know her, and we're just learning about her through her current actions. In terms of the other characters, there's not really anyone to really put a finger on. So I'll just give a quick note on Owen, who is Grace's colleague at the police station, her only colleague, I should say, at the police station. And Owen, I want to say he's the kind of character that needs to be woken up. Like, clearly there was a reason that he wanted to be a police officer, but he's worked with some relaxed people for too long, and he's sort of forgotten that spark that made him want to don the badge, and now Grace is here to reignite that spark. I think once he has sort of woken up and had the spark reunited, he's going to do a good job, and he's going to be an ally to Grace, I hope. I also think that he might die, but that is literally based on nothing. I always just think a character is going to die on whatever it is I'm watching. So yeah, don't hold me to that. Unless it happens, and then I'd say I told you so. Now, in terms of an antagonist, I would definitely say that it's every single racist, sexist, closed-minded, prejudiced bigot on the island, which is at least about 95% of the island's inhabitants. So, but you know, if we want to be more specific, then I suppose the antagonist is whoever was involved with the disappearance of this child that has been gone for a year. And we have no idea who is involved from the pilot episode. But I don't know, people are just acting a bit suspect, you know? And so, you know, that kind of just makes us start giving people shifty eye, even though so far there's no evidence as to who did anything or why or when, or if anything did happen to this child at all. We just don't know. But our brains are already churning, trying to figure out who is the antagonist. So that's good at least. And now it is time for a quick interlude to see what TV and film life is looking like beyond the pilot principle. And as always, we're starting with books. And I have to just have a disclaimer out here because it hasn't been that many days since I recorded this podcast and the last podcast. So there's not much that's changed. I have actually now started Agatha Christie's The Body in the Library, and it's going well. I think I'm only 50 pages in, but I am in fact enjoying myself. When it comes to film, I am in the midst of watching Occupied City. Yes, this is a documentary, but yes, I will also be adding it to my Letterboxd once I am done because it is 4 hours long. And when it comes to TV, like I said, I mean, I literally just recorded. You've just heard my voice. So there is literally nothing new to add. I'm still watching Fallout. I'm still up to date with X-Men 97. You know what? This town keeps looking at me. I haven't watched anything further than the pilot episode, and I have done a pilot review on that a few weeks ago on the pod. But yeah, the second episode keeps looking at me, and I keep looking back and then looking away and then finding something else to watch. So who knows? Maybe this will be the week, or maybe not, because a movie a day in the month of May starts very soon, and I will be film focused. I will be film focused Jen. And if you want to know what films I'll be watching during a movie a day in the month of May, or if you want to also participate in a movie a day in the month of May, then make sure you are following me on Instagram and Twitter /X at Pilot Principle, where we can chat about the latest in film and TV and books. Now, in terms of what my favourite moments were from the pilot episode of The Red King, I actually had 2 favourite scenes. So the first one was the end of the 10-minute mark. So we just had that very creepy shot of the silent townspeople in their masks, and they were like, oh yeah, bye everybody, stop. It was so weird. But to come at the end of the 10-minute mark, I was hook, lined and sinkered from that point. So perfect placement. Super weird. I know I keep saying it. Creepy is the word of this pilot principle episode because creepy is what it was. And I want to know why. Why are you guys so creepy? Tell me. And the second thing that I really liked about the pilot episode of The Red King is that they didn't dance around the race issue. Someone in the pilot episode literally says to her, they should have given the job to a white man. And when I tell you that my jaw is still on the floor, what? With your own full adult grown mouth, you said these words. That scene was absolutely brutal. You had Grace stood there in the middle of a pub surrounded by white faces, all looking at her hostilely, having this man literally getting right up in her face, saying all the thoughts that you think are on their mind, but they never dare to say. And in a sense, showing what it's like to be a person, a female of colour, trapped on an island with a bunch of hostile people. And I just want to round this up by saying that I've always wanted to live in a small town, a little tiny island surrounded by water. Not going to lie. Never mind. Now, in terms of what I didn't like about the pilot episode, do you know what? I'm actually not going to lie. I don't have anything to say, which isn't necessarily indicative that there was nothing wrong with it. I honestly can't think of anything at all to nitpick. At all. Gosh, I mean, arguably. No, but I said I wasn't going to get into a conversation about characterization and acting, so yeah, no, I got nothing. Moving swiftly onwards. Before we get to the point of discussing whether or not I will be continuing with The Red King, let's rewind the clock and look at what we've got. So, The synopsis told us that a police sergeant, Grace Narayan, is sent on a punishment posting to the small antiquated island of St. Jory, where she discovers the forgotten cold case of a missing teenage boy. I'll have to just say, having watched the pilot episode, the case isn't quite forgotten. It's just been sort of purposely ignored, and it's only been a year. Still a long time for a kid to have gone missing with no trace. But yeah, I had different connotations from reading that pilot synopsis. I'd say that the writing is good. Grace is fantastic. She's dry-witted, she's serious, she's warm yet oddly robotic. She's a lot of fun, and that matched with the open hostility she is treated with from the other islanders just showed the good range of writing in the episode. In terms of setting, I wasn't mad at it. It is a made-up island, which is gorgeous, but they reference somewhere called Tenby as the mainland to give the location some context, and Tenby is in Wales, so we sort of understand that she has gone from Newcastle all the way to Wales, and not just Wales, the mainland, but a tiny island off of Wales. And the island itself, St. Jory, reminds me of the movie The Beach, just something that is gorgeous and idyllic, but low-key, high-key, harbouring some sort of secret, so fun times all around. I think the pace was good. Things moved progressively forward while having a weird undertone to make you feel like you're waiting for a jump scare. And I'm not going to lie, part of me was, because Grace would be having a conversation with someone and in the background, there would just be somebody in a mask. Why have you all got masks on? I'm so confused. Now, in terms of the end of episode hook, Grace has gone, quite stupidly I might add, at dusk to look for where the missing boy may have gone on his final day, and she stumbles upon a skeleton. The question is, of course, is this a real skeleton or a fake skeleton? If it is a real skeleton, is this the boy? And what are the implications of him being found? Dun dun dun. And in terms of the serial arc, following on from the end of episode hook, was that really a body, etc, etc, etc. There's the whole culty pagan mask wearing thing going on that is linked to an island quote unquote religion called the True Way, who has a lot of influence on the island, and it'd be interesting to see how far that extends over the course of the series. What/who is the Red King? And what did Grace do at her last job in Newcastle to get her to where she is on St. Jory? And how do the two connect, if at all? Because, from the opening, someone said to her, "It's too late for you." That is terrifying AF. What does that mean? Why have you said that to me? How did this all circle back to one another? So I think there's some meaty chunks within the pilot episode that teases out where the series could go. Which means that there's now only one question left to ask. Will I be continuing with The Red King? Pause for dramatic effect. Disclaimer. I don't want to be here saying yes every week about a new series. You don't have that time in the day. I don't have that time in the day. Some no's are good for the soul and the to-do list, And yet, dear listeners, here I am for another week in a row saying yes to the series. And here is why. As you know, I love a mystery, okay? And this one is embroiled with paganism and mysterious island vibes. And maybe it's because I'm currently reading an Agatha Christie book, but it's also reminding me of And Then There Were None and other such tropes going on. And I want to know who did it and why did it and how did it. The second reason that I want to continue the series is Anjali Mohindra. She's a great actress. I am enjoying her character and I am showing support for her having the starring role in this random series on Alibi that nobody else might watch, okay? And thirdly, I like that it's not on a major channel. Random but true. It's all BBC and Netflix, and Disney Plus. What about the small guys? What about the Alibis of the world? We need to support the Alibis of the world, okay? The ones who aren't paying us an arm and a leg and constantly making us raise subscription costs every year. Support those people. But that is, of course, just me. So you might not like The Red King if you are, just not as sentimental towards mysteries, Anjali Mohindra, or sticking a proverbial middle finger up at the major broadcasters and streamers, like I am. Another reason that you might not like The Red King is that you prefer your police dramas more gritty and less embroiled in folklore. And thirdly, if you just prefer a bigger cast of characters, this doesn't have that. So go and look for something else. And now the last thing to do is to give the pilot episode of The Red King a pilot score. And you know what? I'm not even going to overthink it. 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5. It was solid. It flowed well, had a lot of intriguing elements, and quietly had things going on in the background. No creepy townspeople casually wearing masks at 2 in the afternoon. It also had a main character you could easily side with, and it didn't shirk away from reality. So yeah, good pilot, and I can't think of a negative thing to say about it. I will say that it didn't get a 5 out of 5 from me because it was missing a certain je ne sais quoi, which I'm sure is incredibly irritating for you that I can't put it into anything more solid or English than that to describe why I couldn't give it that extra point. But that's just how it be. Now that we have hashed out the fundamental principles, will you be giving the pilot episode a watch? Or have you already binged every episode of The Red King if you have access to it wherever you are? Don't forget to follow the pilot principle on your audio streamer of choice to help me know who is out there listening and what it is you want to hear. Follow and chat to me over on Threads, Instagram and Twitter /X at Pilot Principle, and I will catch you on the next episode. Aww.